Pardon me?
Where are you calling from today?
I live in Denver, Colorado.
Beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet here.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, let's just give everybody a number so we can do the Noble Goldman principles. So let's see who was on first today. We've lost her.
No.
Not sure. Oh no, I think it was Elizabeth was actually on first. And Vicky. So Elizabeth, you can go number 1, Vicky number 2.
What?
Coralie number 3. I can't remember who was which, but I think you're all about the same time. Stan number 4, so just go by how I see you on the screen. Binta number 5. Joe, welcome Joe, number 6. Are you able to speak, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I'm just checking in case you were driving or something. And me number 7. And I always recommend to people don't drive in Mastermind. It's a bit challenging, isn't it? It's okay, I guess, if you're just listening. Just don't quote me on that if you have an accident. Okay. I got to put my disclaimers. You have to put disclaimers in these days, don't you?
Yes, you do.
All right.
Be aware, coffee is hot.
Yeah, okay, so that whole McDonald's thing, like I don't get that here.
Yes, it's gonna be. Australia's starting to go a bit like America did, where people are suing each other at the drop of a hat nowadays. Okay. Oh,
okay.
Julie's joining us as well. I thought there might be 1 or 2 stragglers coming in. So, of course, it's 4 hours ahead. Yeah, I'm thinking because Julie's in New Zealand, so she's 4 hours ahead of me. So she's got no excuse not to speak, I think. Hi, Julie. So, Lindsay, would you like to be number 7 on the principles, and I'll go number 8.
Oh, is that me? It's number 7.
Yep. So you're after Joe. So
I'm actually in my car with not terribly good in my little phone, the screen, so I can't see very well.
okay, we'll miss you out then. We'll give you
miss me out, and I'll listen and absorb it beautifully.
Give you a pass, and I'll go number 7 after Joe. All right, let's get started with. I better share the screen. That'll make it easier, unless you can do it from memory, of course. Oh, hang on, we've got Julia joining us as well now. Hi, Julia.
Morning.
How are you going?
Good, thank you.
Julia, can you see your screen all right? You able to take a turn in reading?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we'll make you number 7 after Joe. So, and I'll go number 8. Right. So I'll just share screen with the Noble Goldman principles, and we'll read through those line at a time. And Elizabeth, would you like to get us started?
She's on mute.
Are you on mute?
She's muted.
Oh, that's good. Okay. The purpose of the mastermind is to learn leadership, build teams, and create multiple sources of income together.
We are here to inspire and challenge each other to reach and exceed goals.
Each member is committed to their own success, as well as the success of every member of the group.
Number 4 is Stan.
Oh, am I 4 or 5?
Right, you're 4, Stan. Go.
Okay, great. I am committed to meeting in person or virtually for 1 hour every week.
Cool. And it helps if I change the screen. Here we go.
We are present. There is no multitasking or distractions during meetings.
We are collaborative. We listen without interrupting, lecturing, or judging.
We celebrate each other's successes without jealousy.
We are honest and participate by giving thoughtful feedback. Back to Elizabeth. Are you muted again, Elizabeth?
We are open and listen to different perspectives without being defensive or offering excuses.
We trust fellow members enough to share fully.
We are focused, but we also think it's important to have fun during meetings.
Yes, it
You're
is.
real, authentic, and this is a no BS zone.
We allow ourselves to become completely aligned with each other and the high forces, one mind, one soul, one love.
Noble Goldman International is a conscious, aware, and engaged global community of abundance and freedom creators.
Our mission is to create 1 million millionaires who are free from the time for money paradigm. We focus on creating multiple streams of income through masterminding, team building, and the effective utilization of the internet-based platforms.
The mastermind becomes an opportunity for self-mastery, where the self-transcendent shift from the me to the we to the us occurs. As congruence and engagement increases, the world's consciousness is then raised one meaningful and inspired relationship at a time. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And that was really just to get everyone woken up and participating and having fun, because we're all here to have fun. And we've set the framework for the meeting and giving each other, everyone chance to have speak their piece if they wish to jump in. And so I just ask you to make sure your phones are on mute. Watch out for the oxygen masks coming from the ceiling, and we'll get ready to go. And if you have any dogs or animals or children about to climb all over you and make lots of noise, please just mute yourself so we don't disturb the rest of the meeting. And otherwise, feel free to just raise your hand or express yourself through the reactions down the bottom there. So this week, we're working our way through Thinking Over Napoleon Hill, and we're up to now chapters 9 and 10, to more amazing chapters. It's just to check a quick show of hands, just to find out where we're up to here. Who has not yet read these chapters? And there's no disgrace, there's no naughty corners here. You won't get any punishment or lines to do or anything. Elizabeth, that's fine, thank you. Jules. Okay, thanks.
I read.
Oh, Julie as well. Anyone else?
I read 9, but I didn't finish 10, so.
Okay, good. Just to get an idea, I always say to people, don't worry about it. If you haven't read it, just jump on anyway, because you'll still pick up some interesting, some little jewels or gold nuggets that other people may pick up that you might not pick up when you read that chapter. You know, we all have that propensity for zoning out occasionally when we're reading, or just, you know, what's relevant to you, you're filtering it through what's important to you at that time. So somebody else may bring to your attention something that you might have missed. So even if you haven't read these 2 chapters yet, I will be putting this recording up online and you'll be able to go back through. So when you do get to read those chapters, you can optionally go back and review the mastermind and just see, did I miss anything, or did people highlight anything that was extra important, or, you know, that came up that I could maybe apply in my own situation, my own life. The other thing that we've mentioned before, but a few of us have read the book a few times. I certainly read it 30 odd years ago, maybe 40 years ago, going back now. And it's interesting how as your life evolves, different things become relevant to you, you know, depending on what you're going through at the time. So it is a book that you can go back to many times and reread, and I certainly recommend that you do. Even just from the point of view that it's worth reinforcing the lessons that are in there. And this is a timeless classic. It's one that just has stood the test of time, because it's not just about making money. It's also applicable to all the other areas of your life as well. Even though the title suggests that it's about money, it's richness in life and spirit as well. So a quick recap for those who haven't had the chance to do so. I'll just mention that chapter chapter 1 started out with thoughts and things. I'm just referring back to my notes here. So definitely the fact that what we think about is thoughts are energy. So you know how you think about someone and then they call you or they turn up in your life the next day. So the reason that happens is thoughts are energy. We're all connected in a higher consciousness level, and it's amazing. But when you do focus on things, when you do think about people or things, welcome Kim T, by the way, and then you do attract those things into your life. So we know that that works. We know that you can. I mean, my favorite one's the parking ferry. Whenever we're looking for a parking space at the shopping center, we always find one. And you know that this stuff does work. So we've just got to remind ourselves to apply it on the really important things, not just the seemingly trivial or small bits of fun type things. So chapter 2 was about desire, about the fact that when you can turn a wish into, or a dream into something that you can actually almost feel, like you can almost touch it, it's becomes so strong in your mind that you really, really want to make it happen. Then when you desire things, you really can turn that into a force for good, and it's powerful. This is a real quick summary, by the way. Obviously, each of those chapters, there's a whole mastermind on each of them. So chapter 3 was about faith, about turning that desire then into a faith and a belief that you can actually make it happen, and a belief probably also that you deserve to make it happen. And so this is why I look with what we're doing with Noble Goldman all the time is working on ourselves, building our own self-mastery, our own self-esteem, our own belief in our own abilities to make things happen and to make a difference in the world. Chapter 4 was about auto-suggestion, the powerful fact that we are incredible machines, us human beings. We have that whole part of our brain, the subconscious mind, where it's working all the time. It's running those programs behind the scenes. That's why you might be having a discussion about who was that actor in that movie that we watched last night, and then you can't think of the name, and your brain's whirring away, and 6 hours later in in bed or in the middle of having lunch or something, and the name just goes bang into your head. That's because those subconscious programs have been running away trying to find the answer for you. So we have something really, really powerful there. We've got something more powerful than most computers, and yet do we use it? Are we using it as a force for our own good? So if we can put the power of auto-suggestion, if we can really truly put that program in to convince our subconscious mind that we are who we want to become, then we will start to believe that we can become it, and we will become it. So what else did we have then? Chapter 5, specialized knowledge, talked about that knowledge is only potential power, really, unless we apply it. So was it Mark Twain said the world's full of educated derelicts? We need to get that knowledge that we've learned and acquired, and then put it to use. It's no good just reading this book and then not applying any of the principles. So that is something I would urge you to do when you get the chance to go back and reread it and actually go, what am I actually applying here? Or what points am I just glazing over and going, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll get back to that. It's actually no use unless you apply it. Chapter 6 was imagination, the truly creative aspect of human beings, where we can have hunches, or we can summon up just ideas out of nothing. That's the advantage that we have. Well, I know it's changing, but artificial intelligence does what it's programmed to do. We have the capacity to create entirely new things. So, chapter 7 and 8. So chapter 7 was about organized planning, about the importance of not just desiring something, not just knowing what to do, but actually having a plan to make it happen. And then chapter 8 was about the decision, about how important it is to actually stand for something. It was quite a lengthy story about the Boston Tea Party there and the Declaration of Independence and so on. It was about the importance of making a decision and being willing to stand by the conviction of your decision. And that brings us up to date. Phew, that was a quick, speedy run through for those who may not have remembered or not yet read it. So chapter 9 is persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. And chapter 10, the power of the mastermind, which is why we're all here, the driving force. So that's enough talking from me. Let's get this open to everybody else who has read chapter 9. We'll start with the first part of the call on chapter 9. What did you learn? What were the key points for you that leapt out at you from chapter 9? Anybody? Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. But, you know, we don't want to hear me just talking all morning. We want to hear all you guys.
I think the one that pops out is persistence and definite of purpose. Having a definite purpose.
And how have you found that applicable to you, Stan?
Well, I'm always persistent. Yeah, and then I think it was one of those chapters had that weird where he looks at the Muslim faith, Islam faith, which was kind of funny in a Christian book, but I was like, that's weird, but interesting.
Now that's a really interesting point that you've raised there, Stan. I was certainly going to talk about that one as well, because for some of you, you may have read one of his other books. It's called Outwitting the Devil. And he was a very controversial character. I mean, Outwitting the Devil wasn't allowed to be published. His wife went nuts at him and said, "You are not publishing that," because she was so worried that she would get kicked out of the church. Because in that book, he was actually the book was all about an interview between him and the devil. And he was asking the devil how he used his devilish ways to manipulate us mere human beings. And so you can imagine that this was written, I think that one was written about 1938. This was around about the same time, give or take a year or two. Anyone can correct me on that. So at the time, it was quite a different society and quite a different sort of situation. Just trying to find the year of the book. Can't see it. I think it was about around about 1938, 1940 time, somewhere around there. So completely different social fabric, and a time where women certainly did not. This is why everything's written in the masculine in the book, you'll notice. And so women didn't even have the vote, I don't think, at that point. There was still slavery in America. So very, very different times, a lot of different, you know, what they call it, the zeitgeist, the popular culture. So we have to also, when we're looking through this book now, interpret it in our modern day vernacular and go, well, what would he probably have said today? Now, it's very interesting that he, as Stan said, talks about 1938, thank you, that he talked about the Muslim faith and was really quite informative about it. And even at the end of it, suggested that when the Islamic people went into Jerusalem, they were very much of the opinion that they stood for, that all men are equal, all people are equal, and that that nobody was harmed in the invasion of or retaking of Jerusalem. But when the Crusaders went in there, they killed everybody. So it was a very interesting comparison between the two religions. So I would imagine that could have been not very well received by a lot of people in daring to mention that in the book. Anyway, Binta, you had your hand up.
Yes, yeah, so I'm sorry, in the beginning I said chapter 9 and 10, but it's 8 and 9. So I was just reading through, I did read through chapter 8, and chapter 9, I just kind of jotted down, and where he says, without persistence, you will be defeated. With persistence, you will win. Every failure brings with it the seed of success. That is what I got out of it. And also the habit of, you know, being persistent and failure. I mean, fear is the worst of all enemies. That is what I got out of it. And I didn't finish the chapter 9. But for the decision part, I put a lot of like notes, like the ability to make decisions fast. Don't let others stop you from achieving your dreams. Choose only people who will be in complete sympathy and harmony for your mastermind. And then one funny part is that beware of opinions of relatives, and I put a smile on that one. So use your brain. That is all the decision part. So I kind of jot it down. And so now I'm here to listen to you.
That was very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Anyone else ever had any criticism from their relatives?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyone want to jump on any of those points that Vincent raised? Yes, Elizabeth.
Well, I mean, since I've kind of started delving into this community, I've lost touch with some of my relatives because I'm a pretty controversial person anyway. But you know, now that I'm stepping into my power and stepping into my own, I'm really, my brother just doesn't want to talk to me. At all. He just thinks that I'm full of it, you know? And I think it really speaks a lot to the idea that when you're starting to really feel your own power and step into your own power, it can be really intimidating to some people.
Yeah, for sure. Because you're changing, and they don't. You're not the you that they know. You don't react or respond the same way that you always have in the past. So
I'm not playing that game anymore. My role in family has shifted. Yeah.
I see a few nodding heads at that one. Well, you know, that's the thing about doing the self-mastery work, is that you do look at things differently. You filter things through different paradigms. And I think Wayne Dyer summed it up brilliantly for me. I was listening to an interview of his one day, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he said the human mind is like a pair of elasticated boxer shorts. You know, you can stretch them a little bit, and you can stretch them and they'll go back to shape. But one day you'll stretch them that little bit too far and they ain't ever going back to shape again. So, you know, if you can keep stretching your mind, you will outgrow it. Coralie, you have your hand
Well,
raised.
and then the other thing that I wanted to say is that I started back in the 80s, and to speak to the idea that it was written by a man, it was so hard for me to get through that book, primarily because in the 80s, I really considered myself a feminist, you know, and I was really kind of into the whole feminist principle, and it was just sort of, it just didn't speak to me. Anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Good to hear from you. Thank you for that. So, so you're a bra burner, are you? That was the original era of the feminists, wasn't it? The making a big statement. Haven't we come a long way? When you think back, that wasn't that many years ago, was it? Haven't we really come a long way in society? And yet in some areas, haven't we not learned anything?
Yeah, I think we're more extreme, if anything, and some things are more sexist than they were. But what I wanted to say was, I had a couple of things actually. One about the family thing. I've got an older sister and a younger brother, and I was just thinking about it the other day, that I've had times with both of them that we're not talking to each other, and they never had that with each other. But then I also thought they've both been much closer with me than they have with each other too. So I'm sort of big in what's happening, and I scare myself with how big I am. Actually, I've sort of been playing small, and now I'm noticing how big I am, and it's quite scary, but working through that. But the other thing was with persistence, and also with this whole book, I'm finding that I always thought there was like success and failure, but there's a whole lot of failure just when you try things. And so when you're doing new scary things, you're going to have some failure. And so it's on the way to success. It's not instead of.
Yes, that is a great point, Coralie. The thing that we're afraid of is that criticism from failure, and yet failure is just part of the journey. You know, nobody ever is an overnight success. That whole cliche, you know, being an overnight success. Success is not a straight line. You know, if you were to draw it as a line, it does all this kind of thing along the way. You have these moments where, you know, every one of them is part of the hero's journey, is that you're faced with challenges and setbacks and obstacles, and things don't go to plan. And that's part of, well, they don't go to your plan, but maybe they go, a bit spiritual here, but then maybe they go to the universe's plan, that it has a bigger thing in mind for you, or there is a lesson. I always, and I think partly from reading this book and other books like it, I've always had that philosophy that whenever things don't go to plan, there's a lesson in there somewhere for you. And I'm sure he talks about it in one of the other chapters that we went through here in this, that you know, it is part of our journey to experience the downs and the lows, because otherwise, how do you appreciate the successes and the highs if you haven't had to overcome some things along the way?
Yeah,
it gives you
feedback,
that
isn't it? It's feedback.
Yeah, it's feedback, definitely. And it's,
I hate the word failure. I think that's a nasty word. It's just feedback and needs adjusting.
definitely, you know, it's only a failure if you choose to look at it as a failure. And that's usually when your ego is beating you up and going, you know, there you go again, you idiot, you know, you shouldn't have done that, you failed. Because it's kind of going, yeah, no, I told you wouldn't work, make it work, you know. But the reality is that is part of our growth. And sometimes we weren't ready yet for that next step, that next level. We needed to learn something else before we could go to that next level. So, okay. Anyone else on this chapter? Any other key learnings, takeaways? Wow, Joe, you just came back like Jesus then. You were like all ethereal and second coming of Joe. Woohoo!
He's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy.
That's a stunning backdrop you've got there. So okay, well, so a couple other things that I highlighted from reading it myself late last night in the early hours, for those who haven't yet read it yet. There's quite a lot of things that are repeated throughout the book. It's like he's hammering the points home to us. If we didn't get them on the previous chapter, if we fell asleep or zoned out, we're going to re-go through this again. The willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. The starting point of all achievement is desire. As I said before, your subconscious mind works continuously while you're awake and while you're asleep. So why not harness the power of that subconscious mind to be working for you while you're asleep? How cool is that? That's called leverage, isn't it? So if you program some sensible, you know, uplifting and creative programs in your mind, and then you go off to sleep, your subconscious mind carries on working on those things for you. That is super cool. Very interesting comment there, somewhere in there, was that the poverty doesn't require any effort. You know, any of us can be broke quite easily. We don't need to read any books or learn anything much to be broke. But if you want to change that, then you need to learn these lessons and apply them. So, and the fact that the money consciousness can and must be created to order, unless one is born with such a consciousness. So in other words, you need to think about what you want. And he does refer back to chapter 2. I think it might be in the next chapter he does that. I might be jumping ahead of myself. Anyway, I'll come back to that point. But persistence is a state of mind that can be educated. There were 4 key points he said there. A was a definiteness of purpose. B was desire. C, self-reliance. And D, definiteness of plans. Oh, sorry, there's more. There's 8 actually, sorry. E was accurate knowledge. F was cooperation. G was willpower. And H was habit. So applying all those things will create a state of being persistent. He then talks about there were 16 weaknesses that you had to master on the journey to becoming persistent. One was failure to define clearly what you want. And he even talked about that 98% of people, if you ask them, and I'm not going to embarrass anyone by doing that survey here, 98% of people can't tell you what they want most out of life. Isn't that interesting? And if you do ask people, what do you want most out of life? And you might want to think about that for a moment, ask yourselves, what do I want most out of life? Can you answer that question easily? Because if you can't, you haven't made it a burning desire. Isn't that interesting? It's quite confrontational, that, when you think about it. If you're pressed for an answer, if I was to ask everyone, well, you know, if you did know, what would it be? You might say things like security, money, happiness, fame, power, social recognition, ease in living, he called it, ability to sing, dance, or write. But most of these are vague concepts. They don't become real unless you have a plan to achieve them. So he said, riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans backed by definite desires through constant persistence. So it's not enough to just wish that you're going to become rich one day, you know, when the lotto check arrives or whatever, or you inherit it, unless you've got very rich relatives that you know are, you know, on the edge of popping off and they're going to leave it all to you. That's not really a great reliable plan though, is it? So what else? Oh, he summed it up in that chapter, before we go on to the next one, of 4 steps to develop persistence. That's where I got the 4 from. Now this was in all walks of life, not just in acquiring money. One was a definite purpose backed by burning desire. Like we said, the difference between just wishing for a thing and really having a burning desire to have it, or to become it, I should say more. 2, a definite plan expressed in continuous action. So again, it's not enough just to have a good plan. You've actually got to do something about it. It's a bit like...
Can I just go back to this desire and the burning desire? Because I think this is quite interesting, because we think we have desires, but sometimes that desire comes from a desperate feeling of not having it. And I think subtly, without knowing it, we actually put that into place. We feel the desperation of not having it and thinking that, you know, I need this, I need this, I need this. But actually we're coming from a space of, I mean, Abraham Hicks is very good with this. You're coming from a space of not having it. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes the desires need to be clear, and burning, I think it just comes with a sort of a painful, a painfulness to it. So I think, how do we actually, you know, manifest that desire, or how do we frame it in our own consciousness so that it is a desire and not come from a place of lack, of not, you know, of not having it. Does anybody sort of agree with me there, where sometimes we're not actually clear? We don't get into the feeling of having it. We just get into the fact that we haven't got it, so therefore want it. Does that make sense to anybody?
It's a key distinction, Julie. Thank you for raising that. Does anyone else want to answer that? Kim, you're muted.
Oh, I thought Elizabeth was going to say something too. So.
Oh, sorry.
So I agree with you, Julie, and yet at the same time, I have felt that the universe is neutral. It doesn't always know whether we mean the lack or the want. So that's even more, we have to be careful what we say, because it says, you know, oh, well, I think I can't have that. Oh, you can't have that? All right, we're done. You know, it doesn't realize that's a bad thing, you know, so it's a very neutral response from the universe perspective, I think. But can you think back though to a time when you wanted like the new car? You have a car, you want the new car, you desire that car, you want that car. That's not from a lack, or from my perspective, I love sweets. So it's just like, there's not a lack of sweets, but I really like them. I really want them. There's a desire for that. And I think if I create my success with that kind of same desire of, I really just, I want this. It doesn't mean that I don't have other things. It's just, I really want this.
And I think that's the feeling we have to get into, but in the past probably haven't been able to get into, because we're thinking, because it comes from that lack. But when you start to think about, you know, that piece of chocolate in your mouth melting, and then then maybe you're on the right road, you know.
And that's where Mark's got the abundance game.
Yes.
So that we're focused on abundance. What we focus on grows. So if we focus on abundance and we focus on gratitude, then we get more of it. Yep. We focus on lack and we focus on debt and we focus on my weight and I get more of it, or clutter or whatever, you know, you get more of it.
It takes a while to master though, doesn't it, man?
So we work on the abundance game.
Yes, there's a few distinctions there. Thank you, Kim. That was brilliantly answered. You said a lot of the same things that I would have said there. And it's good to have other people chipping in with it, because yes, if your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between things that you imagine that are positive and things that you imagine that are negative. So that's why when you're thinking, you're going into a meeting or something, you think, oh, I hope that person's not there, and they turn up, because you can easily attract the stuff you don't want if you keep focusing on that as well. And unfortunately, when you're in a state of mind of lack, you do tend to attract more lack, because if you're focused on bills, you'll keep getting, oh, why does this always happen to me? Guess what? It keeps on happening to you because you haven't changed your mindset to attract the good stuff. So it is look, we're all a work in progress, Julie. We've all got to keep on working on this stuff. This is why we keep going through it. So good points raised there. Thank you, everyone. So I think we've pretty much covered. Well, there was that last bit then where he goes into, we have touched on this already, where he talks about religion. But another key point I just wanted to mention, he talked about how people like Ford and Edison bounced off each other. The importance of, and we'll come to this now more in this next chapter, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, who are looking for the same self-development opportunity that you are, who want more out of life, who have a desire. And yep, Elizabeth.
You were starting to go through the 4 steps of development.
Oh, thank you.
And we got, yes, I just wanted to be sure that that didn't get neglected, because it sounded juicy.
Thank you. Yes, it was. So that's what triggered Julie to jump on that one, was that step 1 was definite purpose backed by burning desire. We'll just remove the word burning for a moment. Step 2, a definite plan expressed in continuous action. So we have to not only have a plan, we actually have to do something about it. You know, getting the gym membership won't get you fit. You actually have to go to the gym as well, or, you know, similar sorts of stories. Number 3 was a mind closed tightly against negative or discouraging influences. You have to realize that when you are changing, and it's been brought up on the call already, you will get pushback. You'll get the people around you going, well, who do you think you are? You've been as mediocre as the rest of us, and now suddenly you want to go and be somebody? How dare you? You know? So you will get that pushback, and you have to be ready for that and willing to ride that wave of potential negativity or discouraging influences. And bear in mind as well, this is a good point to remember, sometimes with your family, especially your close friends, they're trying to protect you, and they don't want to see you get hurt or fail. So when you announce that you're going to go and, you know, bungee jump off the bridge or climb the mountain or whatever it is you've aspired to do, They're like, "Oh, you sure you really want to do that? You know, isn't that a bit risky?" But that's also saying something about them, that they wouldn't take that risk, and suddenly you will. So you've risen above their level of comfort, you know, their comfort zone, and they're going, oh, you know, they're filtering it through their level. So be kind as well, because realize that some people are going to have that. You're creating a shock for them as well, because they're having to confront their own limitations as they see you start to succeed. So if you can, try and bring people along with you, but I know sometimes you just can't. And that's a confrontational realization as well. Number 4 was a friendly, this is the 4th one, a friendly alliance or alliances with people who encourage you to follow through with plan and purpose. So again, surrounding yourselves, this is coming up to the next chapter, a nice segue into the next chapter, is about the power of mastermind. Interesting that it's 2 words too, because he has talked about mastering your mind as well as the collective of having a group of people. So, and I'll just preface that by saying that he does talk there about, he does an analogy about human mind being like batteries. When you put more than one battery together, they become more energized than just the individual value of each battery. So there is that synergy that's created, you know, that sort of 1 + 1 = 3 type formula, that when we come together, we bounce off each other, and our collective creative talents mean we can achieve more, or we can explore further, or we can come up with new ideas than we could individually. So harnessing the power of the mastermind. Who else has read that chapter and wants to share anything that they got out of it? Am I the only one who's read that chapter? Joe, yes. Oh, Joe's way ahead. He's read it all.
Like I'm listening to it on Audible, so I'm not really paying attention to the chapters. But the other day I was having to do some mechanic stuff on my vehicle, and I just had it playing, and there were 2 points where I had to stop and write down a couple quotes, and I think this one is from that. I know this first quote is earlier, it might have been chapter 1 or 2, but this second quote, conquer your thoughts or your thoughts will conquer you. I think that might have came from that chapter, and I found that to be very powerful, and just, I mean, it stopped me with what I'm doing. I went and washed my hands, and I went back and I found it and I wrote it back down, and it was, you know, just reading it now, it still just hits me. It's, how can you speak a truer statement than that? I mean, if you don't, you know, have control of your thoughts, you know, of course your life is going to be in chaos, and there's going to be just drama and hectic situations popping all the time. Oh yeah, I don't know if it was from 11, but it might have been.
I'm not sure that it was in that chapter, because I couldn't find it myself. Well, I didn't, if it was, I didn't write it down. I think it might have been a different chapter, but it definitely is relevant to this anyway, to what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it is all about our own minds. It starts, you know, it starts with a thought. That's what he said right back in chapter 1. The power of thought is what makes everything happen. You know, everything that, the fact that you've got a computer in front of you, you're sitting on a chair, somebody had to think, oh, we need chairs to sit on, it'll make life a lot easier. You know, it's all started with a thought. So if we can conquer our own thoughts, if we can master those thoughts and harness that power, we can do anything. We really can. Okay.
So,
thanks, Joe.
Tony, so along the, I think it's chapter 8, he said to write down these words, which I wrote down in big letters. And he says that tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it. And he says to write that down and read it every day. So I copied that down. I wrote it all in big letters, and I intend on framing it and putting it on my wall. Another one is the one that we talked about last time, where he says, a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. And, you know, so that's another thing that I took out of that.
And that's a great example, Binta, thank you, of actually applying what you're learning. You know, if you write down, like Joe's done as well, if you write down a quote and then you put it somewhere prominent, where, because it's obviously resonated with you, that for some important reason. There's some area in your life where that's happening. You know, there's something, Joe, that where your mind is getting the better of you, and you've become aware of it. So now you're going, I'm not going to let that thing beat me. I'm going to take control of my mind. And same with you, Binta. You know, what you've written down there is a call to action. You're actually going to make yourself follow through with those important learnings, which is really good. That's the principle of this, applying the knowledge.
Thank you.
And yeah, as Kim said in the box there, it becomes an auto-suggestion then. Once you've written it there and you put it somewhere prominent where you're going to see it all the time. So the power of the mastermind is that power, he defined power as being organized and intelligently directed knowledge. Like we said, knowledge is no use unless it's applied. So if it's intelligently directed, it's going to get you the maximum return on that knowledge, return on your investment of time in acquiring it. So sources of knowledge, he came up with 3 main sources of knowledge. A was infinite intelligence. And we have the capacity to tap into that with our creative imagination. So we can draw down on our higher consciousness. We can get inspiration or ideas or creative thoughts out of nowhere, but they've come from that collective consciousness or from our connection with whatever your higher power is, whatever word you want to call it, God or Allah or whatever. When you ask for that guidance, your inner guide will channel that and you'll get solutions to problems, but you have to ask the right questions. It's no good going, why does this always happen to me? You know, how come I've stuffed up again? You know, you've got to ask better questions than that are more positively worded and empowering. Okay. Part B was accumulated experience. So we get our knowledge from accumulated experience, which is things like the library. Well, it was the library back when he wrote this book. Today we have the internet. We have access to a walking encyclopedia with us most of the time, most of us. So how can we not know what we need to know? It's there. We just got to look for it. We got to ask the questions, haven't we? See, experiment and research. Well, if you type into YouTube how to do just about anything, there's somebody's done it. You know, there's 27 videos on how to change a plug in your sink or something. You know, it's absurd how much information is out there. There's way too much information, some would say. And the thing we have to become aware of, that he didn't have that problem back then, but we now have the problem of misinformation. You know, how much is the media bombarding us with information that's been spun to suit the agenda of the person who's presenting it, shall we say. So being aware of what is valid knowledge and what is somebody's version of the truth. So then he talks about, so that's the sources of knowledge. Then what is knowledge? Well, it's power. Well, knowledge becomes power by having definite plans and action towards those plans. That's how you transmute knowledge into power, is by having a plan and taking action. Really straightforward stuff there, isn't it? It's not rocket science, that. But it needed to be said. Interesting one here, I've written down, no individual may have great power without availing himself of the mastermind. In other words, we don't do it all ourselves. We can't do it all ourselves. We need other people to achieve anything great in life. When you think about it, you know, right through, it started with your parents, then it was your teachers, and then it's your work colleagues or your boss or some mentor that's taken you under their wing. And all the way through your life, you've been getting guidance and support from other people. If you think you can do it all on your own, good luck with that one. The mastermind principle is both economic and psychic. This is why I say so much, this book is not just about making money. He said that no two minds ever can come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. The human mind is a form of energy, a part of it being spiritual in nature. So it's not just about money, it's also about shared values, it's also about wisdom, the acquisition of wisdom. It's about how we inspire each other to become better than we are. It's not all about having things, it's about who we become on the journey in the aspiration of chasing those things. Anyone push back on that one or disagree, or any comments? No? All right, the human mind is a form of energy, a part of it being spiritual in nature. Yes, Julie.
I was just going to, and it's gone now. I was just going to say it's a movable feast. You know, you may achieve something, and I've done this a lot in my life, and then the minute I've achieved it, it's yeah, okay, that's done. What's next? So, you know, it's never done, is it? It's never done, and it's always done.
Just when we think we've got it all figured out,
yeah,
the universe will throw something at us just to let us know that we've still got stuff to learn.
And our own nature, I think, you know, our nature to always to embrace new things, and, you know, a natural sense of curiosity. What's next?
Yes, curiosity is actually quite a tool in your tool chest, really. Curiosity is what has driven mankind, peoplekind. Do I have to say peoplekind these days? I can't remember. I get confused with all this political correctness. It has driven us forward. You know, when they said, "Well, what if the Earth wasn't flat? What if we didn't fall off the end? You know, what if there is a country the other side of that ocean?" That's what's driven us forward. And now we're going, what if there's a planet beyond that? What if there's a planet we could actually live on as well? Let's go and stuff up the rest of the universe, not just our own planet. There's another one of my controversial thoughts. Men take on the nature and the habits and the power of thought of those with whom they associate in a spirit of sympathy and harmony. You could say birds of a feather flock together. You know, when you look at who you mix with, and that may change as you evolve and as you take on board the lessons of books like this, you may start to question, some of the people I'm hanging out with, are they where I want to be? And it's not a nasty thing. It's not a neglecting your friends. You can still remain loyal to old friends, but you are aware, as we've said earlier in the call, that as you change, sometimes people don't want to come along with you on that journey, and it's inevitable. When you think back through your life, there will have been chapters where you had some very close friends, and some of those people have disappeared along the way because either you no longer have the same interests, or you no longer are going through the same experience. You know, like you might have worked together in one shop and then you moved to a different shop, or, you know, you might have served in the army or something, and you've got those buddies that are best buddies one minute and then you never see each other again because you all go in your separate directions. That's going to happen throughout life, you know. So some people, it's a little different with family, isn't it? Because they say you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. They're always kind of there as your family. Whether you choose to associate with them and hang out with them is another matter. But they are often the ones that are the real mirror for you, where you go, am I changing? What are the attitudes I'm getting back from them? What are the, you know, the world is a reflection. So you're seeing that pushback is maybe helping you become aware that you have changed, helping you realize that you are in the process of growing. Coralie, you mentioned how much you felt like you'd grown. I've really seen that in you since you first came on these calls, and you wouldn't say anything, and it's great to see you coming out of your shell and sharing things with the whole group. And I've seen that with a few of the people in Noble Goldman as well. It's great to see. Interesting one, he talks then, expanding that concept of who we mix with, is he gives the example about Gandhi and how one person was able to influence, I didn't write the number down, I think it was something like 200 million, was it? So how, you know, how can one person do that? Because you're going to hate this one, Julie. He had a burning desire. Yes. Well, it was a desire, a strong desire, should we say. There might have been some burning involved. It was pretty hot in India. But, you know, his thing was to India to become its own country again, and you know, he organized the Salt March. I don't know if how many of you know it was. This isn't in the book, but you know, he showed tremendous resilience and character to stand up against an empire. You know, I'm not putting any political views on that at all. I'm just if you look at it in the historical context of what he did, he unified and inspired. Good curry, thanks, Stan. Yes, it would be burning. A burning ring of fire. So he did inspire a whole nation to stand up and go for what they collectively wanted. And aren't we seeing more and more of that now in society? Aren't we? I get the sense that we're really maybe turning a corner, that, you know, that something bigger is about to happen, because you look at the Black Lives Matter protests, for example, where people go, that's enough. We've had enough of that. We want change. And they're turning up in thousands. Look at what happened. There was a wave that went right through the Middle East. You know, the Egyptian riots, where they were standing up against what they saw as a corrupt government. You're seeing more and more people power coming to the fore. And that's I think what we need to move forwards to as a human race, is to gather momentum of a collective consciousness that we go, this is the new level we want to aspire to. We're down here at the moment. We want to aspire to something higher. We know we're not going to get there on our own, but if we all get together, we can start to influence and change the policies of the, you know, the super rich, or the politicians who purport to represent us, but very often have their own agendas. So I don't want to get all political here, but I think people power is definitely something that is coming to the fore, and that realization that we are a collective. So think about who you want to become and having a definite purpose, and then think, who else thinks like I do? Who should I be hanging around with? Who's going to inspire me? Hey, we're all here. That's why we're here, isn't it?
And I'd like to reframe the burning, because I think that burning is also a purification process. And I think of the Australian, you know, how you have the burn offs to stop the forest fires, and, you know, and then after the burn offs, the land's fertile. So yeah, it's got many connotations. I think it's burning when it's if it's a burning desperate, it's behind it what's important. Yeah,
Absolutely. You're right there, Julianne. Burning has been used historically by mankind as a symbolic thing. You know, burning
Gandhi
was done for the gods, you know, as purification, but as a symbolic.
Ganges.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Mayans used to, they did a particularly nasty thing, actually. The kings, I don't know if I should go into this on this call. They inserted something very nasty in a certain nasty part of their body and drew it out and caused a bit of pain and discomfort, and some blood, which they let the blood then onto parchment, and then they burnt it as an offering to the gods. And they believed that in doing so, that would then inspire the gods to believe that they were doing the right things, and therefore they would bless them with, you know, good crops next year, and feed the tribe and all that sort of stuff. So historically, our indigenous nations particularly have used the power of burning in our rituals, and so there's something about that burning that's very important to mankind. I suppose it all started with fire being, you know, the thing that protected us from the wild beasts, and sitting around the fire and sharing our wisdom. So maybe we should have a fire here in the middle of this. Somebody maybe have a backdrop with a fire behind them, and we'll feel like we're all sitting around the fire, sharing our wisdom on these mastermind calls. So he then just the last thing that I thought was really important on this chapter is that happiness is found in doing, not merely in possessing. So we are human beings who are doing things so we can have the things that we aspire to have. So it is the being and the doing that makes us who we are. You know, it's not the money that you want. And he talks then, this, I would challenge everyone to think about this. It came up in this book in these chapters. I think it was in this chapter. I can't remember. I think, yeah, it might have been this chapter where he said, go back to chapter 2. If you haven't already, go back to chapter 2. Can anyone remember what was in chapter 2? I'll tell you. I got the book. Yes, I've got the book right here. And not just go back to chapter 2, do what it says to do in chapter 2. Well, who's done that? There was a list of 6 things in chapter 2. Has anyone done it? No, we've got a lot of blank expressions here. Okay, so what he said was in chapter 2, 6 things. First, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. Not just, I want to be rich. How rich? What amount of money do you want? You've got to be specific when you're asking for things from the universe, right? Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. What are you willing to sacrifice, or what time are you going to put in, or do you need to invest something to make money? But what are you going to do? Because everything comes at a cost. You know, if you want to learn how to play the guitar, you've got to put in hours of practice. It doesn't just happen, right? I learned that early on. It took me years to go back to it and realize I actually had to do the work. I got frustrated because I couldn't just pick up the guitar and play it. I had to actually spend hours learning how to play it. Third, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money you desire. You know, put a time on it. SMART goals. Fourth, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you're ready or not. Oh, no procrastinating. To put this plan into action. Kimmy's got the fire going. Yes. 5, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the time limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. So once again, we come back to desire plus plan plus action gets you the results. Now, here's the 6th one that we all need to work on. Read your written statement aloud twice daily, once before retiring at night and once after arising in the morning. As you read, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money. So when you do look at other works, people like Joe Dispenza today talking about the quantum fields and the quantum future, you can create any future you want for yourself, any riches, anything you desire, but you have to see it in your mind's eye that you've already done it, and then your body will catch up and do the work to get you there. So it's not just enough to think it, you have to feel it, and you have to believe it in your heart. I'm going to do this. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to get there, whatever it is. Now, it doesn't have to be money. This applies to everything in your life. If you want to be, I don't know, the greatest social worker in America, and that's your aspiration, you know, I don't know quite how you measure that, but anyway, whatever the thing is, if you're Gandhi and you want to unite a country to stand up and get the result of independence, what are you willing to sacrifice? What do you have to do? Yes, he probably had to eat a lot of curry, but he also had to go around talking to a lot of people. He had to firmly believe in the conviction that he could make this happen. He had to see in his mind and feel a free India standing in its own right. And he described it over and over. There you go. So we've all got some homework to do, haven't we? Lucky I'm going away on holiday soon. So what are we today? What's the date today?
The 20th.
First. Okay.
20th.
I'm still here next week, the 28th. and the week after that, I'll be away for a week. So you will have chance to catch up if you haven't read these chapters yet. So when you do, you can look also through the recordings. They're all on YouTube, or they're on the Creating Your Ideal Life page. If you scroll back down through the timeline, they're all there. So read each chapter, make notes on the chapter, and then go back through the recording and see what was discussed and what points were raised. And extract every bit of wisdom you can out of this, because this book really is a blueprint for success in anything you aspire to do in life. If you apply...
Wait, Tony, sorry, Tony, where did you say this recording is going to be?
The Creating Your Ideal Life page, my social media page.
Okay, your Facebook. Okay, your Facebook.
It's also on my YouTube channel, so they're all uploaded.
Okay. All right.
But I'm conscious of time. Yeah, we've been over time. I apologize for that. Has anyone got any last things that they want to say? Any real big takeaways for you from today that's resonated with you, Elizabeth?
Yeah. What chapter are we reading for next week?
Will be 11 and 12.
11 and 12. Okay.
So.
And thanks for the invitation. I would not have looked for you had I not seen you in another mastermind.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Lovely to have you here too. Chapter 11 is going to be an interesting one. The mystery of sex transmutation. Harnessing the power of sexual force to get what you want. Number 12 will be the subconscious mind. That's going to be a deep topic. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. Any last thoughts, anybody?
Thank you so much, Tony.
We're all done. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your input. And we'll see you all next week. Have a fantastic week. Go put all this into action. Make it happen.
Thanks, Tony. Right. Thank you.
Bye.
What the dog said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good week, everyone.